Slightly sort of toned down jacket before ordinarily just sort of heaving at the walls here. People will be fighting over these half dozen seats over here. This is the very first PK I think we've had at Atlantis where everyone's got a seat. So I don't think one may that not rain. I think hopefully we'll come back here in September and we'll be fighting again. Saying I've been here since 5 till 8. How come I didn't get a seat? So thanks to Martyrs for organising this. All of their beer, all of their wine, and their libations tonight. I think not all of it is sell by day yet, but not all of it's been drunk the past few years. So the alcohol keeps really nicely. We've got 8 presenters tonight. First up tonight, we've got a slightly temperamental projector. First up is going to be Shannon Downing. Yeah. We'll let anybody in here. Shannon is better known as Badass Cross Stitch. So let's hit the next slide, right, and then we'll see Shannon's badass cross stitch nog in there. She's a community organizer disguised as a fiber artist and craftivist. She blends politics, activism, and art into projects that are designed to inspire others to take action, think, discuss, engage with democracy and the community, and find some digital analog balance. It's her birthday tomorrow. Who was here on March 3rd last year? Like 2 or 3 people before. Shannon presented that night, and she was going on a trip that she talked about. And, she's going to talk about that a little bit this evening. She's actually wearing her invisibility cloak tonight. So let's hit Shannon's presentation.
I tangentially has to do with the knowledge that that very weekend I was heading to Kentucky for the opening of our exhibit at the National Quilt Museum. And then I wowed you with the announcement that in June I was moving into an RV and hitting the road for a year-long tour, bringing my art activism to the whole country. In fact, next weekend I did travel to Paducah. I met some of the artists who worked on the quilt, fell in love, tattoos, had an amazing weekend of art connection and drinking. It was a boarded the plane to fly home. There were only 4 people on it, and I started to feel like something might be amiss. 2 days later, the entire country shut down. But don't worry, just for 2 weeks. I continued on with my plans as well. I gave my notice 6 months earlier. My replacement was wrapping up their training. I didn't renew my lease, so I had to be out of my apartment by the end of June. I had over 100 events booked for the next 6 months of my tour. I had about 5 meetings, launch. I sold everything I owned, including my car. Oh, and I got married. Come June, it was clear this wasn't going to wrap up anytime soon, and in 1 week, my birthday week actually, every event I had booked was canceled. So I cried while I was self-pity for about a week and questioned all of my life choices. And I got my shit together and decided there was really no turning back, and I would need to figure out how to adapt this journey to accommodate the pandemic. Most camping locations were closed, so I had to figure out the logistics of just moving through the country. I set up a Google Doc and asked folks if they had a flat driveway and a plug and they were willing to host me for a few days. So I've got a few thousand posts from across the country now, and I started driveway hopping, which was dope because I was still self-contained in quarantine, but enabled me to continue to connect with people. As I started traveling, I realized I had grossly underestimated the total lifestyle transition that I embarked upon. Prior to this, I had spent a total of 3 days in an RV. I had no clue what I was doing. And what I realized was the original schedule that I had built was like that shit, and I never would have been able to keep that pace of travel. So in a way, it was probably best that this event got canceled because I would have been a hot mess. One of the biggest challenges was living completely online when I had just given up consistent high-speed Wi-Fi. Getting Wi-Fi in an RV is like a game of chess when you're using as much data as I was for Zooms. But despite all of this, we kicked ass this year. I immediately started teaching embroidery and craftivism workshops online, and since the pandemic started, I've taught over 5,000 people from around the world how to embroider. I accidentally started a cult, which consists of several hundred fiber artists who meet every Sunday, and we're now living over compounds, so we can live together. In December, I started to get really nervous for people because I was hearing a lot about, like, I can't wait for 2020 to be over, and 2021 is going to be so great. And I was like, probably not, though. And that's really going to fuck some people up coming in January. So I launched an initiative I called Make Don't Break, and I supported over 10,000 people in developing a daily making practice. I channeled their New Year energy into something actionable and realistic. I was able to introduce them to 31 artists and activists who provided them with a daily making prompt. We had Zoom check-ins and a Slack channel to connect them with other makers, and it was definitely transformative. Following that, I launched How to Be a Good Human, which is a radical Skillshare series focused on providing people with hard skill sets in order to move them forward in their lives as activists. We hosted 4 bystander intervention trainings, which over 500 people attended, and Activism 101 for introverts and highly sensitive people. I'm adding to the series every month with upcoming trainings that include how to prevent a drug overdose, so you want to go to therapy but you don't know where to start, and how to unionize your workplace, to name a few. All of these workshops are free or pay what you can and led by experts in their respective fields. And yes, there are completion badges. I'm working with the Be Seen Project to host quarterly panel discussions called Disrupting Craftivism in an effort to bring some critical analysis to the craftivism movement. 500 people attended the first panel, and the next one's happening next week, and I would love to see you there. I also had this idea that the US needed a craftivism residence program since none exist. And I'm excited to report that I'm working with both the Fuller Craft Museum in Massachusetts and Salem College in North Carolina to launch the country's first craftivist residence programs. And I'm always looking for more partners, wink, wink. My vision is an international cohort of craftivists. We displayed Rita's quilt in 6 states in COVID-friendly ways. I gave over 40 lectures and traveled to 26 states so far. I got to hang out with Kelly Clarkson again, but didn't have to fly to LA this time. Win. I had a pretty rad solo show in Austin in February, and this spring I've been able to host some outdoor in-person events, which like fills my soul with joy because it feels like I have a purpose for being out here. It's been amazing, but certainly not all joy and fun. It's been a shit ton of work, desperately lonely at times. My precious fur baby Scrappy passed away in October. I have been, like everyone, operating under a constant level of stress that I would get COVID. And I almost died in the storms in Austin, but was rescued and housed by some amazing strangers. Right now, I'm parked in a very level driveway in Washington State. I got my second vaccine, and I'm actually starting to book real in-person events and shows for the fall. So my one-year tour is now a lifestyle with no foreseeable end in sight. I'm excited to see the possibility of the original vision actualize. I'm excited to work with community in person again. And tomorrow is my birthday, and I will be launching a much overdue Patreon community, which you are invited to join right now. This is a way for me to create a safe digital community where I can ensure that everyone knows about all the things that I'm creating for you, workshops, trainings, events, art. And it's a way to support the work that I'm doing so I can continue to do more of it. I'm just out here trying to change the world, y'all. It's been a hell of a year. I'm tired and excited and stressed and full of hope and inspiration. And mostly I just miss all of you. But ever forward.
So if you're talking badass cross-stitch, here's a tweet. It's weird that I'm on stage at Chaka underscore ORD for a live audience while simultaneously sitting in my RV in Washington State watching Game of Thrones. She's multitasking. Hi, Shannon. I guess you can just imagine that the video camera back there is saying, "Hi, Peter." So we're actually live streaming, and not sure how that happens, but I had it up here a moment ago. I think it's probably on Twitter somewhere. So Shannon has got, as she says, a whole series of ways to get in touch with her, and I'm sure some of you are already doing that. So, where you go, Shannon? Thanks for being here. Probably visibility plug. Although, if you're wearing an invisibility plug, you can't see what I'm moving. Probably something offensive about me. Okay, next up, talking about offensive. Martin Atkins, is that nice? Edgy. Talking of edgy. So just rewind that. Talking of offensive and edgy, Martin Atkins is the definition of entrepreneurial activity in cultural arts endeavors. His 30 plus years in the music business spans across genres and borders and industries. He was a member of Public Image Limited and Killing Joke. He founded industrial supergroup Big Face, The Damage Manual, and Murder Inc. and has contributed to 9 Inch Nails Ministries, the author of Tall Smart and a bunch of other fascinating and motivational books that get young people and I suppose older people really engaged in the music industry in a way that is sustainable. And he, in addition to that, he's a producer, he's a drummer, documentary filmmaker, DJ, and father of 4. What the future of music is pretty much that we will be in the middle of it. He was in the middle of it in Pachaka tonight. This is short for the PK, I'll give you a second. 15. Mike has done 100 of these previously, so he's a deaf man. He's got a curious accent, and he's, amongst many other redeeming factors, he's an occasional fan of the United. Please welcome Martin.
Thank you. Oh, this is from my mom's wedding. Here we go. So, what was it, March 23rd, 2020, the country goes into lockdown. And I was kind of freaking the fuck out, right? So I go to see my friends at Dark Mountain Coffee because they inspire me. It's so much more than just a coffee place. They make vinyl. They did a collaboration with Kirk Hammett from Metallica. They do beers with different bands. And they do my coffee, get the fuck out of bed as well. And I was kind of freaked out because they were paralyzed with fear. They have 107 employees and didn't know what to do. And so I put $100 in their, the bucket for their employees. And I felt pretty good. Like a random $100 donation is not nothing. By the time I get home, I realized it actually wasn't nothing. It's like 70 cents per employee. And I have one of my guys rework my get the fuck out of bed coffee bag into a state fucking side, brown bag, and I start fucking printing these bags, trying to do something, right? My little blue blanket screen printing. And my kids are helping putting them on the clothesline. And I take 300 bags that cost me about the same $100 back up to dark matter. And they pair it with the get the fuck out of bed coffee. And it becomes a force multiply that $100 in a little bit of creativity. It becomes $15,000. And then I see Tim and Katie over at a hideout. They're doing artist books, hideout books, which you think is really great. The artist gets $5. It's a $20 bill. But it's genius because they look so fucking cool that people are framing them and putting them on walls, not spending them. So then we take the state of fucking swag bag and we give the people an option of buying a shirt, a button, and a bag for $18, $20, $100. It's the same fucking shit in every bag, and we tell people that. And now we've got $7,000 in 2 days while other people are waiting for a grant to come in. And we make stay the fucking side shirts. And then Busy Beaver buttons. What am I saying? Busy Beaver. Yeah, can't say it twice. They give us a bunch of buttons. So then that's too easy. So we start customizing these shirts for each bar. And we send a bunch of sports in Hamtramck to Bar Redux in New Orleans. And so now we're using the sports multiplier idea. Like 20 shirts with some drinks tickets, 20 bags of buttons is $900 worth of help that costs us about $100. And we're creating these stories, sending shirts all over the world. Down in the corner here, that's Yukio from Barsai in Tokyo. Just stories everywhere. Now it's time for a new coffee. Get the fuck in the shower, you filthy bastard. That comes with a bar of coffee-flavored, coffee-shaped, 100% goat's milk soap from our friends at the Art Farm in Decatur. So we're sending them money, we're putting soap in bags of coffee, it sounds great, and letting dark matter do their thing. The George Floyd happens, we start to help black-owned businesses as much as we can. Let's add 2 in the corner as the Hayden on the south side, Jessica Carter. We did some shirts for her. I Heart New University, my friend Chris Mitchell. And Gasaban give the proceeds from those shirts to build benefits. So stories, turns out, I see this TED talk. Rob Walker does an experiment. He buys 200 objects off of eBay for $129, attaches stories to each of those, puts them back on eBay and sells them for $8,000. And I love that because it's like, it's not some silly poetry or some art we did. It's just creativity. It's a fucking elbow to throw in somebody's face. Makes a difference. At the end of a week of this, I'm fucking exhausted. And I get home, there's an envelope in my postbox for me. It's Emily Lord from Halliard's Bar in Brooklyn. She saw one of my workshops. So I was teaching people, I'm printing bags, you can do this. She starts printing bar towels, and she sends me an example with a note. It says, we're printing bar towels every Tuesday. You're hoping to save my bar. I want a bar to help save. Pints of beer are still free to first responders. These fucking stories go out and come back. They go out and come back. And then, taking a leaf out of John Walter's book, I do a scratch and sniff conference online, and people can scratch any one of 8 smells, so we're separated, but we're all together, sniffing burnt rubber, banana, weed, of course, vanilla, which wasn't very good, and of course, coffee. So I don't need to tell you what this says. Cythwyllis, it's not just a village in Wales. It actually isn't a village in Wales. Great things happen when you do stuff. Nothing happens when you don't. So, don't let the pursuit of perfection stop you. The latitude that people will give you to fuck up is equal to the gratitude they feel from you just doing something. Right? Those bags were horrifying examples of how not to screw it. I would tread on them in my Doc Martens and put thumbprints on it. And this kind of got me through. Toni Morrison, there is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. That is how civilizations live.
So you feel like you've had your money's worth now, right? Like you feel like you've had your fucking money. We should put that in the bag. So I'm detecting a theme already. We're two presenters into this, and you're all learning something. Well, things I did in the pandemic, and things that are getting us through this, and things that are building our entrepreneurial spirit. Next up, we have Addison Florence. She's an architect in pursuit of licensure. She's got an MROC and a PROC. She's a recent graduate of the School of the Arts in Chicago. Usually, the PK crowd gives a little modest round of applause. She's graduated during the pandemic. She's a writer, about how you could make your home more energy efficient.
Than the other. Okay. I have lived in a total of 14 different homes across 7 different states. Through all these moves, I became very passionate about personal home. It is what has led me to want to become an architect. It is what made me so passionate about research, architecture, and design. Our environment is in a continuous state of change, and our residential housing market has not adapted to change. I'm passionate about preserving the role of the home and becoming a better caretaker every day. And I can teach you guys how as well. I'd like you all to think about your family, friends, and ask yourself, what is their knowledge of net zero design? And what do you think they're doing to help promote net zero strategies? I ask you this because personally, most of my family and friends have no clue, and they have very little knowledge on the carbon they're personally consuming from our home. Buildings, including offices and homes, use 40% of our energy and 70% of our electricity. And demolishing homes and constructing homes just maintains the same sustainable building construction techniques. And I think all of us in this room are aware of the effects of continuously demolishing and using non-renewable resources, and that those days have caught up with us. The problem is not that the information is not out there. It's that it's not being currently delivered and presented in a way that's simple and easy for the average person to understand and to take action. If we teach people how to be more sustainable at home first, we increase the future of sustainability elsewhere. Existing traditional homes can become tools and learning environments for the future of energy conservation. So I'd like to introduce to you my solution. I've created this net zero pack of cards that shares knowledge as it relates to improving carbon footprint, processing, residential reconstruction. By putting information that is already out there into a simplistic form for homeowners to understand, we can adapt existing houses to meet the needs of today's environment. These cards are the beginning of representing all of the components of a traditional home and how one can modify them in their own home to promote net zero design. Through my website, one can look at the card here at the small introductory information and take it further by looking at the videos posted online. I've color categorized all of the cards to create an organization system. The blue is statistical energy analytics, starting the conversation. The yellow is the biggest impact category. The pink is medium impact, and the light green is small but mighty. In the blue category, for example, the web resources card, you can go online and look at a program called ComEd Solar, and you can type in your home address and figure out how many solar panels, how much it will cost in order to make your home have solar panels. And then I have another card for the homeowner's rule just to get the conversation started. And then you can learn about photovoltaic panel types and knowing that the difference between polycrystalline solar panels and monocrystalline solar panels. And while it's not typical to change orientation of a house, it's important for my clients to understand the benefits that they can take advantage of if the home is oriented ideal for passive solar heating. For the windows and green card, you can look at this and see if your window is facing east and west, then a good combination of high R value and low solar heat gain coefficient would be wise to prevent overheating in summer. And then one can consider selecting or replacing their traditional dryer with a heat pump dryer. And while this is more expensive over time at the beginning, over time the energy saved will outweigh the extra expense in the beginning. On the next slide, I have a picture of doors. So you can learn more about the materials of doors that perform best under certain weather conditions. And it's recommended to perform a blower door test to see the air gaps that your door may have. I wonder how many pictures. Yeah, they're really nice. Replacing your drywall ceiling or ensuring that the light reflectance level is 0.83 or more can extend the level of daylight into a space by 10 to 15%. And that can reduce the amount of electrical lighting needed throughout the home. So that's the small but mighty impact card. And with over 133 million existing housing units in the United States, and with nearly 80% of that built in a time when energy efficiency is not much of a priority, strategies based on your home type can vary, but we've got a lot of work to do. From the 1830s workers' cottage, known for its long and narrow floor plan with local materials such as stone and brick, to the single-story long and rectangular ranch home, with its great opportunity for rehab mid-century modern interiors meeting net zero standards, to the adorned craftsman's low-pitched roof lines and wide overhanging eaves, offering a great opportunity for shading control of photovoltaic panel locations, to the bungalow with its small floor plan ideal for passive ventilation and the lines offering multiple angles for solar panel locations, to the contemporary and modern, where the building standards might be above the rest, but it's still important to consider the right windows and overhang conditions for net zero standards, to the colonial with its symmetry and rectangular floor plan and fireplaces dating back to the pre-HVAC days. So we have a lot of work to do, and due to stack of cards, we can reduce the existing 40% of energy that is collectively consumed through our lawn homes. I urge you to go home tonight and think about the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, so we can all, at the beer break, we can all come and take a look. Okay, that's amazing. And making architecture and these, or making access to issues of sustainability, it's really genius. You can't just sort of wander into Home Depot and figure this out. Thank you for doing this. There's a heckler back here. I'm going to ask my colleague and cohort, Michael Jackson, who's got also a curious accent and a curious attitude, and from sales. So he's going to introduce our next presenter. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? I'll make this long. It was Trey's tall too, so I'm going to make some adjustments. I'm not going to lick it like Prince does. Don't clench Sharon, please tell me. It was whiskey and breakup tales at one of jazz critic Neil Tess's birthday bashes that brought impresario Trey Elder and I together. Tall, hirsute, and attired like a Celtic warrior from Arthurian mythology. Perhaps Merlin himself. I took an immediate interest in Trey. I thought he might be gay at first, and happily it turned out we both were. A mover and a shaker in the entertainment, sandwich making, and insurance trades, Trey, appropriately enough, shake a bit, gave my jazz trio a gig at the Broken Shaker Bar during a series he was running at the trendy Freehand Hotel. No one came to my gig. The sound of one freehand clapping reverberated. But Trey was totally chill. Having booked bands for years as operations manager at Jerry's Sandwich Shop at the Park, manned the soundboard at the Double Door, and been a vocalist and player himself, he was accustomed to the vicissitudes of the music business. Nevertheless, or perhaps because of that broad experience, Trey responded quickly during the pandemic with various valiant strategies for plugging the cultural chasm. We had frolicked together, shopping for Jurassic inflatables for the launch party of his non-profit Quiet Pterodactyl. But when lockdown hit, Trey made good on his vow to promote the arts and music communities. but it's fantastic, Trey, isn't it? It's a nice music. Okay. Well, have you got your record? I do. Great. Well, bring me one of those quick, because I've got to the end of the thing. While most of us were still reeling from the shock, QP put its platform speedily to work, raising awareness and fiscally assisting struggling shuttered venues. Mark, can we have some heckling? Anything? Yes. Excuse me. What was that? No heckling, please. Oh, I think it was Ray Quinn. I think it was Ray Quinn wondering where his check was. Oh, right, to stop. No doubt, Trey will tell us something about Quiet Pterodactyls and imperatives. But, lest I forget, he packed with him pre-release copies of the spanking new Situation Chicago fundraising double vinyl compilation album, especially for tonight. No kidding. They're literally shouldn't be pressed. They're ready for the pressing. And if it's half as good as the last one, you will not be permitted, for the sake of your own delectation and well-being, to leave without purchasing one. Here he is, handsome, hard-working, hairy hero. Trey Elder.
Thanks for that, Michael. It's very bombastic. I hope I live up to everything he just said. So I need to start a nonprofit so I can do cool shit and make absolutely no money at it. In fact, I was going to call this speech Doing Cool Shit, but I want my parents to enjoy this speech at a future point in time and be proud of me. So instead, this one's about doing cool stuff. Why? Why do cool stuff? Why not do boring stuff? Or do the same thing everyone else is doing? Or not do anything at all? What is cool anyway? Well, they say you know love when you feel it, and you know jazz when you hear it. And I think you know cool when you get to experience something and you walk away thinking to yourself, that was really fucking cool. One thing cool is to engage your audience, which I hope I'm doing right now despite me holding this recording. When I create events, projects, whatever the case may be, I plan on bringing the audience into the experience so they're interested in being along for the ride. Doing cool stuff is fun both for myself and for the audience, but it also has to be planned and purposeful. Planning means not leaving cool up to randomness. But what if you're not sure what you're doing is cool? Well, no one ever really does, but risk is cool. The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. This picture is from a street festival my partner and I helped produce featuring 20 DJs from all over the city, and the Royal Hand sound system was something the general public had never seen before. I think it's pretty cool. Cool is also building attention ahead of time. I once gave rolls of promotional stickers out to a bunch of street skaters, asked them to put them up everywhere in downtown San Francisco, including dead center on the crotch of some men's underwear ads. Now, I don't recommend you do things quite as illegal as that, but that's up to you to decide. Before the band OK Go was an international sensation, I remember their first few shows in Chicago. They used big, bold letters of their name on colorful posters that were put up all over the city. Even if you hadn't seen them play or heard their music, you kind of had to have heard them because literally their posters were everywhere. Now they are known worldwide for always being unique and inventive with their videos. Giving people free things is also pretty cool. Making original gifts demands creativity, but it also gives your audience something to remember the experience by later. These keychains, while they seem very simple, my partner and I at the time made them by hand from Horween leather, one of the only leather tanneries left in the country. Based here in Chicago, and everyone got one. In fact, where are they good? I still use mine today. Decor is also crucial to creating a cool experience, and it doesn't need to be expensive or complicated. Here's something pictured very simple I did at a large industrial feeling venue. By adding Douglas fir and mason jars and candles around the musicians, it made the performance feel just a little more intimate. The venue almost didn't let me have the candles, but luckily we didn't burn the book. Here's something you may not have thought I would do. I once organized a fundraiser for a rabbit shelter. It was a variety show with hip-hop acts, rock bands, DJs, comedy, and a drag queen host. We pre-sold entry packages with wine, artwork, spa treatments, restaurant gift certificates, and other donated items, and all the packages came with various types of rabbit ears and masks to wear upon wedding. Basically, we tricked the adult audience into wearing fucking rabbit ears the whole night. Rabbit Fest was a great success. We were able to pay all performing artists more than they expected, and also donated thousands of dollars to the shelter. Another cool thing to do is to plan surprises. For this event, we had guests come into this warehouse space that was almost pitch black, except for that Jameson neon over the bar. Guests came in, hung their coats, got a cocktail, and tried to see if they could recognize other guests in the dark. The Jameson rep wanted to turn the lights up so badly, but we kept reminding him to trust us as planners to let the night reveal itself in faces. So the next phase, we had a band performance with full wall projected light display, which changed the whole dynamic of the room. We kept the band performance at 25 minutes, so we didn't lose anyone's interest, even though the music was dope. And the stages of the night moved along. The extra planning for this one made it feel very special. The third and final phase of this particular night led the guests down a long, dark hallway that we built and into a dining area where they enjoyed a special chef-prepared dinner. Custom purple neons on the walls and purple backlighting all around the room. We orchestrated the seating as we wanted specific guests to interact with specific other guests so that they might not usually get to, making it a unique experience. A final cool statement is to finish with a bang. Make sure what you're doing is memorable from start to finish. This photo got attendees in a group picture thanks to Michael Jackson, who introduced me. He took that picture. It truly made everyone there feel like they played a part in the experience, not just mere observers. But cool isn't limited to in-person events. As a result of the pandemic, Quiet Pterodactyl created the Situation Chicago project to reach our audience who are all stuck at home. We organized and sold a double vinyl record of 25 Chicago bands and artists to raise money for independent paintings close and definitely because of the pandemic, including Martyrs, where we are right now. Anyone could put out a record with some effort, but what made it cool is the attention to detail, starting with the original cover artwork that showed. We had one of our sponsors, Smash Plastic, make every single record a different color or pattern, so each set was truly an original collector's item. We also had artist Chadwick sign the first 1,000 copies. And we had unique items available at different price points for everyone. The digital download of music was obviously the least expensive, but we sold the test presses, the only black version of the vinyl, for a higher price point, and we sold hand-painted versions painted by Chadwick to folks with a bigger budget. We also took pictures of all the participating artists holding the record to help promote the album sales, like this one with the world-famous producer of the Twilight Zone and his family. We also reached out to long-closed, gone but not forgotten bars and venues to get permission to do limited runs of merch featuring their logos on t-shirts, hoodies, and other items. This tapped into nostalgia of what people thought was cool from years ago when they were younger. So far, we've done Sonotech, Rodin, Darkroom, and this picture here, the infamous double book. But just a couple of weeks ago, we released Situation Chicago 2 that Michael held up, with a whole new crop of artists. This poster will soon be in your neighborhood record store and many independent venues around town, hopefully Martyrs. This time, proceeds support the Civil Save Emergency Relief Fund to help artists, staff, and venues who still might be struggling from the pandemic. To summarize, from planning, promoting, crafting my new details, providing take-home gifts, to ending with a bang, there's no reason you can't make anything you're doing cool. And if you don't think you can do it, you can always hire Quiet Pterodactyl to help you out. But however you go about it, I hope you're inspired to make whatever it is you do in the world just a little bit cooler. And when in doubt, remember, nothing is cooler than cute animals and people clothes.
Great, thank you so much. Well, this microphone is up really high now. So, you guys are really strong. So, 4 presenters. We were a little rusty on the PK stage here. It's been a year. 4 great examples of stuff that we did when we were inside during the pandemic. We graduated. We sold a lot of coffee. We ended up mysteriously in Seattle in an RV. And we've got a record here that Talk to Trey. It's in the back there, right?
Yeah, we got the first one and the second.
All right. Gifts for all the family.
I would say it's a really good record. First one, I'm going to buy it. It's a charity thing. I play all the time. It's really good. I'm really good.
Yeah, checks in the mail, Michael. Even his heckles are long. And so traditionally what we do right now is, rather than send all of the presenters up to the very nice green room here at Martyrs, we lock the green room door and we make them stay down here. And as many of you may know, pachaka chair is the onomatopoeic Japanese expression for the sound of conversation, chit-chat, chat. So go grab the 3 presenters that are here and ask them some more questions. Figure out the stories that made them take these last 16 months. And we'll be back in 15 minutes or so with Walter Street, me, Taylor Proctor, and Sophia Sanchez. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting Martyrs. Thank you. Thank you, Heckles. See you all day.
Did it overflow? And then you also need to clean up here. All the empty cans that you're hiding everywhere. Why are you so on edge?
I'm just trying to do something.
Calm down.
You're doing your stuff, I'm doing my stuff. Conversation done.
Thanks for your help, though.
Yeah, thanks for your butt. So now I can talk.
I don't know. I don't know. No, I think our talk is in the audio too. I probably should mute the microphone. It's for people watching. It's two people. It's Brian and me.
Hey. 1, 2, 3. Is that good, Ray? Thanks, people on the mic. Okay, shut up now. That's enough. Our next presenter, are we ready? Silence, please. Our next presenter needs no introduction. Well, actually, he does, because he never gets one. He's the 97-year-old president of the American Institute of Artists. Sorry, ahead, the 97th incumbent of said prestigious distinction. Woo! Round of applause. I barely knew him when I was a snotty-nosed kindergartner in our hallowed and historical hometown of Knaresborough, North Yorkshire. As at the time, he was the prefect of King James School, readying to embark on a distinguished international career. By chance, decades later, we reconnected in the American Midwest, united by a passion bordering on violence and
certainly foul language for the greatest soccer team of all time. Leeds.
Who's that guy?
Boo! Leeds United. Yes. We also share a penchant for decent beer, although I think I've seen him drinking Stella, and a mutual admiration for over-the-top British metal band Darkness, among other among other post-colonial heroes. Honestly, I think tonight, Cass. He's one of my dearest and most deeply sarcastic pals. A lovely, extraordinarily thoughtful philanthropist. In fact, I'm wearing one of the football socks Peter bequeathed to me on an important birthday. He couldn't find the other one. She's a good chick. Is this mic on? He's the co-CEO of the Iconoclastic Architecture's Fund, alongside Lady Sharon. It's a French guy who remains the Amanos Police. Together with other, more exotic hues of the Chicago. Please welcome the one, and tonight, thanks to you lot, not so lonely, Sir Peter Hess. All right, let's hit it, Ray. In 1966, American artist Ed Ruscha mounted a motorized Nikon to the back of a pickup truck and generated two 24-foot-long continuous photographic views of a 1.5 mile section of a landmark stretch of West Hollywood, one for each side of the thoroughfare in his seminal book, Every Building on the Sunset Strip. 6 years later, Yale University architecture students and their professors Denise Scott Brown, Robert Venturi, and Steve Eisenhower replicated the exercise on their Learning from Las Vegas studio and subsequent book. I've always wanted to do some version of this, and during the pandemic, I took this opportunity. Absent a motorized Nikon or a pickup truck, my elongated panoramas are hand-drawn streets of real places as you've never seen them. One side of my street depicts a compilation of landmarks, monuments, and works of architecture present in my life at formative moments. The opposite side, a selection of works from a quarter century of practice as an architect. The journey begins in Yorkshire, my childhood home. River rocks were carved during the Dunsian Glacial period and were about 5 miles from the home I grew up in, Ockham Farm, a small stone farmstead dating back to the early 18th century. Next is Porter Pier, named for Pope Pius IV. It was originally designed by Michelangelo on the Aurelian walls of Rome in 1561. A photograph of this appears on the cover of Robert Venturi's book, Complexity and Contradiction in Architecture, a book in the collection of every architect of my generation. Here are two more gateways. One on the right, the arches at Newcastle University, the gateway to the architectural quadrangle where I spent 3 formative years, and on the left, the White Horse Tavern in Newport, Rhode Island, where I was married and the oldest continuously operating public house in America. Every child of the 60s feels a kinship with the Apollo program. It's the Saturn V rocket that launched Armstrong, Collins, and Aldrin next to a thrusting John Hancock Tower, the finest and boldest skyscape on the hometown landscape. That kid of the 60s watched a lot of American television in Yorkshire, and this sign featured prominently in many murder mysteries. Like Porter Pier, it's another portal into a complex and seductive city. It's also fun to draw. In 1984, I met my mentor, Steve Eisenhower, Philadelphia architect, co-author of Learning from Las Vegas, and co-architect of Franklin Court in Philadelphia. This ghost of Ben Franklin's demolished and long-lost home is one of my favorite buildings, or non-buildings, and massively intrigued and inspired me as a young architect. And for those of you familiar with Boston, this behemoth, Rose Walk, is the building I spent an entire year drawing windows and bathroom tile details in my first job at Stephen Airlines in Merrill in the mid-80s. It's another gateway of monumental proportions, and Fort Appeal likely fits quite comfortably under its grand arching dome. So much for influences. Here's the work of architecture is fun. Here's a Burger King in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Early adopters of Macintosh computers will recognize this enormous furry dog's resemblance to one of the characters in the hypercard programming language. My first completed building is the Exploration Station in Bourbonnais, just around the bend in the Kankakee River from Frank Lloyd Wright's Bradley House. It's a group of little barns on a former farm that's now a park district project. The panorama has a whole series of artifacts hidden within it. These not so discreet trees recall erectus sets that fascinated me as a child and that I've scaled up here. We'll find these in a couple of architecture's fun projects, but these ones are notably from St. Chrysostom's Day School on Dearborn Parkway. When I worked with Steve Eisenhower in Philadelphia, a daily ritual in the afternoon was rubber band target practice. We had a fine little set of animal targets when we were on fire at each other, one of which I scaled up out of 1.5-inch plate steel, and this 8-foot tall chicken lives with similarly whopping farm animals just up I-95 in Lindenhurst in northern Illinois. Here's a kit of parts from the Mid-Michigan Children's Museum in Saginaw and the DuPage Children's Museum in Naperville. One of the luxuries of my hand-drawn panorama is reflecting on a main street of buildings across a series of communities. I like to think that these projects have influenced buildings for younger architects everywhere, and hopefully they'll turn into productive citizens and patrons of architecture. This tree trunk is from the Pritzker Family Children's Zoo, one of the greatest free things in our city. And here, almost finally, is a Ronald McDonald house in Oak Lawn, just on the south side here. Coincidentally, the topic of my very first Vachakacha Night presentation from this stage 14 years ago. We've been doing this for 14 years. Can you imagine? Wraps up with a modest pavilion that resembles a Kokishi doll. It's actually an art studio and printmaking workshop near Fort Lauderdale, and it's actually full of a display of much smaller Japanese dolls. It's very charming. So the pastime of pandemic unleashed the creativity that many of us have seen this evening in different ways. For me, a collection of fantastic places that have been important to me, and I hope a collection of places that had an impact in communities across the country. Appropriately enough, this indulgent drawing is immortalized on another project in a time of COVID. Sharon and I have worked on a new book on the processes and things that influence architecture's fun and the outcomes that come about. Thanks for letting me share this. You're so generous. Walter Street, who was supposed to come right after the beer break, but I know got otherwise distracted, has handed me a biography. I have a biography here, penned by me. Votes for this one?
Peter!
Votes for this one. So a cursory, this is not going to be as long as one of Michael Jackson's epics. An epic is an epic we use loosely. A cursory glance at the internet will inform you that Walter Street III is a product manager at PlayStation in Los Angeles. The Walter Street you will meet tonight, however, is a native of Baltimore and an architect with a long and respected history in Chicago. Like many of those who grace the PK stage, he's an activist first and foremost. Walter Street, my friend. I don't recognize
Someone told me about a year ago, before we hit this storm, that PKI was planning to do might not be relevant. Well, as it turns out, it has become more relevant. Our foundational documents stated that all men are created equal. Men. The founders at the top, and then in the bottom are descendants of founders. You can notice that some of them are not like the founders. Several years ago, in 2017, a friend of mine, Lindy Fullenbaugh, started showing me the 400 project she was putting together for new school in preparation for 2019. And then tonight, this is the second night of Greenwood, Tulsa, that actually is a rather normal experience for Black folks in the United States. We have gone through many of this edition with the multiple towns around the country, hoping we would get beyond that. However, Greenwood being destroyed did create further impact. The lawyer there was the father of John O. Franklin. I'm from Baltimore, as Peter stated, and I grew up in the community of Cherry Hill. And I grew up about 2 miles south of one of my heroes. Happens to be, well, anyhow, we'll get to it. But this is part of the influence, because I grew up in public house designed by Paul Williams' partner at one time, Hilliard Robinson. Well, that was the founders. And the founders, as you may have, some may know, were part of the problem that we still have today. A lot of us don't know that about 33% or more of the Africans who were enslaved were Muslims. So we have the existence of Islam in the United States for certainly over 350 years. Chattel slavery rested on violence. Started with violence from the inception from the shores of Africa and increased throughout maintenance in the Western Hemisphere, particularly in the United States. But resistance continued from the onset. A famous resistance movement was the Eagle in Georgia, who instead took over a ship, and instead of allowing themselves to go to slavery, they, 75 of them, were chained and drowned themselves. This is a recognition by some colleagues of ours at the Smith Group. They did Recognizing Slavery, a project last year, Society's Cage. My hero, Frederick Douglass, I grew up about 2 miles south of where he was enslaved, where he worked in the shipyards, where he escaped to freedom. And fortunately, being in an old city, history was the mother's milk of our early segregated education. Frederick was one of the most photographed individuals in the 19th century. He used photography to proselytize freedom and liberty for Black folks. We are still managing the false narratives, but we now are making gains. Kende Wiley's statue at the Richmond Museum of Fine Arts has been installed for about 18 months. Shortly after the war, after the Civil War, this is just one snapshot of the historically Black colleges that exist in this country. There are 104. And I did not go to a Black college, but I've been influenced by it. This is a very interesting connection. Mark Twain, while at Yale, befriended Warren T. Magwin at Yale, and Magwin became a phenomenal attorney who mentored in Baltimore one Thurgood Marshall. Ida B. Wells came to Chicago around 1892 from New York because she was under threat of being lynched in her home of Memphis, Tennessee. That fortuitously strengthened her relationship with Frederick Douglass. Even though we've gone through a lot of strife and we're still keeping our eyes on the prize, there is hope and resilience. And a manifestation of that is, again, my personal experience. The family, our friends, and some of the people that still influence us. Thank you.
Walter, thank you. Many of us have talked about having a year of hardship, but there you talk about a 400-year history there, and hopefully we're starting to make some progress. Thank you for being a fine friend and great colleague. So next up, Taylor Proctor, a rising professional interested in the psychology and sociology of design, and who recently received her Master's in Architecture with emphasis in interior architecture from, and I told you what to do before, from the School of the Arts. They don't look like it, but some are. Even Michael clapped. And he's a graduate of SCIC too, right? Yeah. Taylor?
Tell Lord Sanders.
All right, Nicholas. Taylor, welcome to the PK stage. Thank you.
Architectural expression, the language of public space, analyzes the current public landscape and the human behavioral patterns resulting from that landscape to help designers develop their intentionality to become more aware of their design, teaching them how to cultivate richer interior public spaces. This project looks to decrypt the language of the city. This is a call to reimagine public space and to reestablish the meaning of public space. Public space is our right. It is not biased. It is free. It is flexible. It provides opportunity. It is indifferent. Architecture influences the Moore scenario looks at plastic space and proposes public spaces that are flexible in form. It imagines elements and spaces that change to support human activity versus humans adjusting to or being limited by the architecture of space. Chutes and ladders access. The chutes and ladders scenario tries to create inclusive space through connectivity. This scenario provides physical access to and connections between interior public space and exterior public spaces by introducing stairs, elevators, skywalks, and underground tunnels. NOLI is inspired by the principles of the NOLI map. This scenario looks at inclusivity through transparency. NOLI peels back or removes the facade to provide physical and visual connections between interior and exterior public spaces. Architecture influences the culture of a city by shaping and revealing its values through tangible design. Rethinking existing architectural elements can reveal the relationship between design and behavior and opens new opportunities for the architecture of human experience. The symbiotic relationship between architecture and society informs spaces, events, and interactions that are either positive, negative, or indifferent to the growth of a city's culture. Through the deconstruction, reimagination, and reconstruction of the physical elements of architecture, we can create new public space typologies that encourage nuance in the urban fabric. So there's a commonality in the types of public spaces, their functions, and their form. For example, Plaza is to Food Hall and Boulevard is Highway. Viewing Island, which is seen here, is the spatial typology where form and configuration communicate a language that encourages the conservation of human behavior pattern. One of the main social behaviors of society is to observe or people watch. These spaces provide the opportunity to do that, to provide new visual connections and viewpoints throughout the city. This typology is about transparency. It opens a variety of new possibilities for triangular interaction. Interstitial oasis. This spatial typology provides a break from the hustle and bustle of the city. The configuration and condition of this space communicates a language of relaxation, intimacy, and privacy. What can be seen as the meat in between, this typology breaks the monotonous language and design of the city, deviating from the structure of a predictable gridded city. This subtractive design method encourages breeze and excitement in the city, an air pocket in a dense form. Assembly planes. This typology creates flat, open spaces that support a multiplicity of occupational opportunities. Through the creation and distribution of open spaces, this typology encourages imagination and free thought. The flexibility of this space provides creativity and agent of change and creates a language of community ownership. This typology is about form. It is a morphological space through the simplicity and purity of elements. Transitors. Is a spatial typology where the elemental assemblage communicates a language of movement. This typology provides more varied, safer, and efficient pedestrian access and circulation throughout the city. By complex layering of pedestrian pathways, this typology is about access. It is the form of transition. Social connectors. This spatial typology is about place. By creating multi-use spaces that combine the layers and activities of the city, producing a network of culture and society. These typologies are more than street or mode of transportation. It is a major connection of the city that embodies the community and culture. PlayStation. This spatial typology encourages exploration and interaction by utilizing every surface. This typology attracts social interactions and engages the community in free play. This typology is about form, communicating a language of exchange. It uses the manipulation and undulation of elements as a way of creating captivating space. And thank you all for listening.
presentation reminds me of a really fantastic movie from the early 1970s by the sociologist William White, called The Social Life of Small Public Spaces. And some of it is filmed in Chicago, down by the Chase Plaza, which is First National Bank. And it's all about the public taking back public space in the city through accessible typologies like you described. So nice job. I'm really hopeful about the future of architecture if it's in your hands. So thank you. For the last time, here's Michael Jackson tonight. So for the last time this evening, it's Michael Jackson to introduce, sadly, our final, but perhaps most spectacular presenter of the evening. Michael, keep it short. He said, hopefully.
Thank you, Peter. Our next presenter is stipulated to ride it, so she's always performs a shot of whiskey and a Cuban cigar. So we could put Chuck and Chaz by the finest Havana cigar. I'd like to make an announcement because I'm slightly tipsy. Trey, focus. That Trey Elder, our previous presenter, as several of you lovely people have bought the Essential Situation Chicago. Thank you. Trey is offering a free download, not those who pay for it. It's just a convenience. No one else is getting a better deal, right, Trey? We don't want to undermine ourselves. But you're offering everyone who's here tonight a download of a new one?
Yeah, another item with a free digital download of both records.
Wow, how about that? Thank you to all those lovely people. That lady over there who was just taking a drink. Yeah, you were very nice. I like you. She's not cheap like the guy she's sitting with. She's got a turntable. Shut up. All right. Anyway, wasn't pizza great tonight? I love pizza stuff. We're very serious enough. Well, this is the last one. We can take it on. Okay. Ray, am I too close to the mic? Yeah. Yes. Hot mic. How's me half profile? Okay. How many paralegals do you know that have a pair of legs that dance fiery flamenco? Cast a net as wide as you care to. You'll not find anyone quite like the remarkable Sophia Sanchez. A Chicago native with a cultural background as diverse as the demographic of Albany Park, her insatiable interests extend beyond vocal talent, bewitching body movement, and filmmaking. She's also known to dabble with a multitude of musical instruments, from Moroccan banjo and bandoneon. Even her granddad's trumpet gets a dusting off now and then. If anything, during lockdown, Sanchez's promiscuous creative output increased in leaps and bounds. She made videos with co-conspirator Gilles in Mexico City, playing Bonnie to his distant Clyde. Collaborated variously and hilariously with percussionist Niels Higdon, Hindustani dancers, duos, trios, and quartets. A brilliant wordsmith and mistress of the pun, she penned, recorded, and mixed several stunning pandemic ballads, often in cahoots with her talented and bohemian husband, bassist Lou Marini. Last August, Sophia, Louis, and Sicilian drummer David, collectively known as Combo Chinotto, stopped by my place after a rare en plein air gig at some Cafe Cantante in Rogers Park. We jammed into wee hours, bathing each other in a heady mix of nostalgia and cognac. A Mexican-Romanian Anglo-Italiano summit that practically saved my sanity during the bleak summer.
of nothingness. That night felt entirely like home, albeit a home for wayward expats, gypsies, and mongrels. So please, people, press your palmas together, thusly or thereabouts. Right. Exactly. Let's hear it for lifesaver and savourer of life, Sophia de Leon Sanchez.
Have I got a timeshare opportunity for you? Buckle up, guys. Thank you for that intro. I am a very busy woman. Too busy. I don't recommend my lifestyle to anybody. It will do irreparable damage to both mental and physical health. People say that I burn the candle at both ends, and they're absolutely right. You could say I'm at my wig's end. All right, so I was born in Chicago. I grew up in Old Town. That's our apartment at North and Wells. Those are my parents. Aren't they gorgeous? And that's me, thoroughly unimpressed with character. My parents are artists. My mother's a photographer, lighting consultant, expert. My father's a musician, singer of all genres. So I came from art. I was immersed in art as a child. At a very early age, they had me dancing to earn my keep. But it was encouraged not to pursue that as a career. So I fast forward many, many, many years. Now I'm paralegal. I work at Chicago County College of Law. I work for two lovely professors / practicing attorneys, Richard Clay and Richard Gonzalez. The jokes that I work for two digs are endless. And they never get old. Richard Clay plays harmonica, so when we're not getting people out of jams, we are jamming at the office. So when I'm not at the office, I'm gigging a lot, usually running 2 gigs from work. I'm a flamenco dancer, primarily. I think that's my main thing. I studied flamenco for about 10 years. I've been passionate about it since I was a child. And I've performed with traditional and non-traditional bands, and it's been lovely. Shameful plug, if you want to see me. I'm performing on Fridays this month at Art Tango with Guitarra Azul. So be there. Okay. So when I'm not dancing, I'm also singing. Because of course, I started a band with my husband, Louis Camochinotto. It's Chinotto. It's bitter Italian fruit, so it's very fitting for us. We do jazz and flamenco and blues, and I sing in all kinds of languages. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess, but it's a super fun mess. And if you ever see us on the bill, you're going to have a good time. This is our living room and our Russell Village 2 flat. It's also my recording studio. This is where I work. This is where the magic happens. If Louis was here, he'd be laughing because it's never that clean. Usually when I'm in the middle of a project, it's more like this, where instruments are strewn everywhere, paper, recording devices, everything is just, it's a complete chaos. That's usually what it looks like, and it's never even that clean. These are the instruments I own currently. I've acquired them over the years. It's become an obsession. They're all my babies. English concertina, accordion, gourd banjo, many guitars, dulcimers, banjo ladies. I do play all these instruments. Whether I play them well is open to interpretation. But this is what I do on my free time. I'm usually hermited up in my front room, recording myself playing all these instruments. I spend a lot of time playing with myself. So the pandemic happened, and I thought I'd be fine. This is my time. But I ended up spending my time, like most people, baking bread, recreating old paintings, and drinking copious amounts of alcohol in my jammies. So, yeah, I did get out of that funk eventually. and I started creating and collaborating with friends again. And I started making videos of these collaborations, and it saved my sanity. This alone got me through the pandemic, I think, and a few other folks, I think. So these are the projects that Michael so lovingly described in his intro. So this is my partner in crime, Gilles Agniot Thomasien. We connected via Zoom because he's currently in Mexico City right now. We connected during the pandemic, and we thought, let's just do some stuff because we're not doing anything right now. And it kind of evolved into a much more involved project where I got a little nuts with creativity, with some guerrilla filming in Union Station when nobody was around, and it just took off. We're like, this is a thing. We can make films together, even though we're thousands of miles apart. It's possible. So we formed a group and named it the Sophia 3. I did not choose this name. I am not that much of a narcissist, contrary to popular belief. But ever since we started the Sophia 3, we've gotten amazing artists on board. We've created really interesting videos. If you follow us on social medias, on Facebook, on YouTube, we are the Sophia 3. And you can see our series of videos. You can see the evolution of the qualities of our videos. This is the Bonnie and Clyde video that we did. I found the car, which was incredible. I just happened to have one. And it's more just a testament of the resiliency of the human spirit. Even when the world comes to an end, we can still create, we can still make things, we can still get things going. That's why I feel like my fellow presenters are absolute kindred spirits. And I love that. We can do it. Gilles, my co-conspirator, he runs a nonprofit organization called Creative Jesus Christ. I forgot it now.
Creative Jesus Christ.
Community Arts Exchange. Of all the things I had to forget tonight, my plug. Community Arts Exchange. This is their information. Rolando Palacios is our executive director. If you have any questions about this program, it's a lovely program. I'm going to go over and time out because but they're a wonderful community building organization. They build communities through the arts. They've done songwriting workshops about advocating against domestic violence against women. They're an excellent organization. So if you want to find out more information, go on, look at the back. Brown shirts, the brown shirts at the bar. So thank you guys so much. I had a wonderful evening.
Oh, someone's got some free booze up here. Oh, it's all gone. So that was. We're not really post-pandemic yet, are we?
No.
But as close as we've ever been to post-pandemic, that was our first Pachacacha night. I think it went rather nicely. Game of Thrones is even more interesting and exciting than Michael Jackson's introductions. I doubt it. Martin? Fucking thank you. Addison, and can't wait to see those cards in every home in America. Trade only before I acquire one of those albums for my daughter. And nobody's allowed to leave until Trey's box is empty. Thank you. Walter Strait, thank you. And you are the one who tricked me into doing something AI and it got completely out of hand. Thanks for nothing. Ashley, thanks for all kinds of things. Taylor, thanks. And we got to sit down and watch that William Wine movie together, right, into a public space. No thanks to Michael Jackson for all that. Were they puns? double entendres, whatever they were. Yeah. Clapping yourself does not count. Sophia, thank you for enduring that torturous introduction. I live, Sharon and I live, must be within not even a stone's throw of your childhood home. So we got to, and this is a side conversation. Thank you all. The bar is still open. I think as long as we want it to be. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you all. Thank you, Sharon. Maybe Michael will take a photograph if I can kind enough to. Thank you all. All presenters.
Casey, gotta go to bed.
Did you not hear Mom? She said 10.